Day Monday, Chapter 14, Saying Goodbye. The next morning rose early and bright, a refreshing dawn promising a light-hearted day ahead, perfect to cap off a week-long adventure rife with juvenile absurdities. And do you think the kids had a good night's sleep, knowing full well they needed to wake up early for the big day of travel that morning? No. As if they wouldn't take advantage of their very last night in the Harrowing house to enjoy sneaking around mischievously playing tricks on each other. Big surprise, they'd stayed up way too late. Dad, particularly cheerful with a steaming mug of herbal tea in his hand, instructed everyone to load up all their gear onto the cart outside and make sure they left nothing behind in their rooms. A groan of compliance emitted from the lifeless, hollow shells shuffling forth with regret. They had no choice but to suffer through their consequential party hangovers. Thankfully, they had spent the previous evening cleaning their rooms and packing their bags ready for leaving the next day. They had done their best to leave the house in a similar state as when they'd first found it upon arrival. Yeah, not quite. So there wasn't too much to do now. Dad did a final sweep through the main areas of the house, double-checking nothing was missed. Kruger promised to post forward anything that might have been overlooked. Before long, the family of 3 plus 1 were outside with Tony in the cart, ready to head to town to catch the first boat. Uncle Kruger waited by the front door to see them off. Dad, standing there looking back up at the house, paused for a moment as mixed emotions welled up within. Had it been a good idea to come? Should he have brought his family up with him? Or had he just made things worse? Suppressed memories from the faded past had been stirred to the fore during their stay here. Many pleasant, some not so. Exciting times spent getting to know his young fiancée, fraternizing at their favorite secluded picnic spot hidden among the gorse. Sweet and challenging moments being newlywed, plus the wonderful births of their 2 children. But also vivid reminders of the nightmare he'd endured, his beloved taken away from him, along with their hope of a new life together. There was no surprise that it might be painful for him to revisit his old life here. While having moved and raised his kids south, he had not been capable of sharing his deepest feelings with anyone close to him. Even his brother-in-law had suffered socially, becoming a bit of a recluse, unable to cope after the loss of his sister. Nevertheless, Dad concluded, bringing his thoughts back to the present, it was good that they all had come, for everyone's sake. Finally, everything was out in the open, like a personal diary or photo album placed on the family coffee table, their hidden contents available for honest disclosure and discussion. No more avoiding, no more secrets. No doubt healing was already well underway. Evidence of that fact stood before them, displaying a great big smile. Uncle Kruger exposing his exploding crooked teeth, waving expansively down to the children. Bye, Uncle Kru. Thanks for letting us stay. We had fun. See you next time. Can't wait to come back again. Bye-bye. Dad nodded back to his brother-in-law. Then, tugging on the reins, the cart lurched forward, carrying the kids down the track, leaving the Harrowing house behind. We'll need to stop off at Grandma's before we go, said Dad, leading Tony from the front. We didn't get a chance to say a proper goodbye yesterday after the picnic. All was pleasant and peaceful as they retraced their tracks from the week previous, the 3 kids once again sitting atop their luggage, wobbling against each other. Absorbing the familiar surroundings, they sat in silence, their thoughts enriched by memorable moments which had filled their week. Their first day at the beach, the discovery of the secret office, defending themselves from Kruger's spittle, crawling through gorse, investigating the eerie kirk, hanging out on the boardwalk, zip-lining over the rhubarb maze, the nasty incident at the public outhouse, among others, hanging out on the fishnet, the constant thrill of discoveries made in the Harrowing house, and many, many more. Including poor Mel getting her foot run over. What? Oh yes, that's right, forgot to mention. Sunday afternoon, as they'd been preparing to leave the picnic, Tony had unexpectedly lurched the cart forwards, pulling the cartwheel right across Mel's wee toes. Ouch! Thankfully, Moses, also acting as resident medic, had a spare crutch laying about the kirk and gave it to her, fussing over her profusely. You'd think church would be the safest place on earth? Not for dear Melody. Of course, she'd taken it all in stride. Sorry, too soon. All in stride. Inappropriate joke. She'd managed to hobble about the house, getting everything done that needed to be done. Now she sat on the cart, sore bandaged foot propped up on luggage, saying her silent goodbyes to the hills, fields, and farm animals. Okay, here we are, Dad interrupted the flashback. In no time at all, they had made it down to the village. Stopping at the door of large Grandma's flat, Dad called out a friendly, "Good morning." She was already waiting for them outside, where she was usually found, permanently perched on her mobile scooter. The kids hopped down from Tony's cart, some more gingerly than others, and approached their newly met grandmother. They had chatted briefly the other day at the church picnic, but were really a bit bashful at the time, especially considering their shock that she was a relation of theirs. They'd been more interested in running around with all the other kids anyway. Melody, polite as ever, spoke up, complimenting her on what a nice big home she'd owned and how much they'd enjoyed their stay there. "Thank you, Petal," Grandma responded with a wheeze. "The secret doors and hidden hallways were cool, too," offered Tarzan. Grandma smiled, then waxed momentarily philosophical. "The best part about secrets, my dear, is discovering them. After that, keeping them isn't always so much fun, especially when you're bursting to tell someone about it, no? Now, I'm not talking about important secrets, mind you, which are meant to be kept. I'm talking about fun secrets. What is the point of having a really neat secret if no one else can share the excitement with you? Seeing the wonder on someone's face when they uncover something hidden for the first time is far more satisfying. But the more you share it with your friends, the less of a secret it remains. Therein lies the dilemma of having a secret, don't you think?" Hugo and Tarzan looked at each other in surprise, attempting to digest this unexpected food for thought. Gathering closer around their grandmother, they all said their final farewells. Hugs were a bit awkward, as you can imagine. Hugo tentatively proffered an embrace, standing on his tippy toes, cumbersome scooter in the way. Managing to rest his head on her expansive belly, her heavy triceps weighing mercilessly down on him, he could hear the muted rumbling and gurgling of her inner workings. He quickly let go. Mel hugged her too, noting to herself the warm sensation of laying vertically on a rolling waterbed. Flesh wobbled and rippled upon contact. "Ugh, what a precious wee thing you are," Marjorie cooed, squeezing her granddaughter. A noxious flatulence escaped. Frapping roughly against the faux leather seat, her large, sloppy buttocks were draped over. She seemed oblivious. Grandmas tend to do that. Regrettably, Tarzan was next. Forced to enter the restricted area against his will, he donned his imaginary World War I standard-issue mustard gas mask and braced himself before going in. Didn't help. His mind almost exploded, incapable of comprehending the unearthly foulness assaulting his senses. "Ack! Quick, he advised himself, eyeballs bulging from their sockets, brain synapses recoiling with alarm. Keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. Foolishly, he dove straight into her polyester embrace for shelter. Again, didn't help. The alien biochemical warfare burned straight through his PPE filter, creeping tenaciously up into his nostrils. Tarzan's body shuddered, his faculties going into shock. Marge, refusing to let go this time, enveloped the poor wee boy a little bit way too long. Smooth triple XL jumpsuit had swallowed him up, almost smothering him out of dear existence amongst the sweeping folds of excess insulating lipids. Melody, noticing a frantic small hand with purple-blue fingertips sticking out, came to his rescue, pulling him free just in time. Tarzan gasped for air, sans discretion. "Why did I have to hug her?" he complained to himself. "She's not my grandma. Sheesh!" Cuddles complete, Marjorie settled quietly, admiring her grandchildren. The air was tainted, badly. Stepping discreetly back from the scooter, the familial group paused as naturally as they could, waiting for someone else to bring up something conversational. Cough. Doop-de-doo. Yeah. Awkward. Before they left, Dad made a quick request to fill up some water bottles from the faucet in her flat, if he could, for their trip home. "Oh, I haven't had any working plumbing here for years," she apologized. "I make do with water drawn from the well if I need to, or doing my wash at the laundrette. I have someone help me with all of that." "You mean to say you have no running water in your home? Not even a functioning washroom or a toilet?" asked Dad with incredulity. "Oh no, not necessary," Granny Large Marge replied simply. "I just go down to the local outhouse when it's low tide." Registering what he just heard, Hubert's eyes went wide with horror. "I think I'm going to be sick." The small boat pulled away from shore, the sight of the village diminishing in the distance. With all their belongings piled mountain high in the middle of the floor of the cabin, they leaned against the rail outside, watching the Washtray Isle coastline slowly sweep by. "Soon we'll be on Porkney mainland to catch the big ferry back to mainland Scotland. I've already called ahead and the mechanic says he'll have our car waiting for us, good as new," declared Dad, beard swishing slightly in the sea breeze. He stood behind the boys, one hand resting on Tarzan's shoulder, the other resting on Hubert's. Hubert stood with his ukulele, absently twanging a string. "What's the first thing you'll do when you get home?" he asked to his pal. Tar interrupted his thoughts of squeezing into the back of the jam-packed car again and making sure he got a good seat right next to Mel. "Probably go see my mom and give her a hug," he answered. Chin resting upon both hands folded on the rail, his eyes took in the moving scenery. Long movements of water rolled steadily past them, like massive aquatic rolling pins. Waves smacked into the hull, salty sea spray splattering on the deck. "Aw, that's really sweet, Tar," said Mel, comfortingly close to him. "I'm sure they'll be really happy to see you. I'm sure you were missed a lot." Mel looked quite the sight, like a casualty belonging in ICU. Steadying herself with her one crutch as the boat rolled over waves seeking to test her balance, she smoothed her mangled hair with her free hand, then quickly grabbed back hold of the rail. Tonguing the jagged edge of her broken tooth, she observed through taped-up glasses sitting crookedly across her face the floating seagulls hovering over the bow. Melody gave an almost imperceptible sigh. Sensing something was up, Dad spared the hand from Tarzan's shoulder and reached over to give his daughter a comforting rub. You okay, sweetheart? Are you sad to be leaving here? Melody sniffled slightly. She realized she was feeling a bit disappointed. I never did get to Thea. Puffin! Tarzan shouted, pointing eagerly off the boat. Everyone stopped to look. Not too far from them, along the cliffs the boat was passing, dozens of wee little birds with multicolored orange beaks were flying back and forth. Some were resting in front of small burrows, while others were diving down into the sea for food. They were indeed puffins. Other passengers became aware of the excitement and gathered on deck to see. Just then, one cute little fellow flitted up and landed on the rail right next to Melody. The humble seabird stood there in his black dinner jacket and orange webbed feet. For a long, breathless moment, the two of them observed each other with mutually tender eyes. One sweet, innocent creature to another, as if sharing an understanding. An exquisite moment later, the puffin waddled along the railing, stretched its modest wings, then flew away to go dive for tiny fish. That was so sweet, breathed Melody, looking up to the sky with gratitude. I hope we come back next year. I am so glad to hear you say that, said Dad, moving to kiss his daughter on the top of her head. We most certainly will, including you, Tarzan. We'll all come visit again, if you'd like. Then, with added humor, after all, you know I am very fond of all of you kids. With a cheeky grin, Dad proceeded to kiss the boys on the top of their heads as well. Instantly, he regretted it. Gak, Hubert! You really need a bath! The end. Ugh.